She was already standing on my porch when I pulled into the driveway. A small stack of boxes had been left by the delivery guy. But they weren't there anymore. Instead, Karen had one under her arm, another already in the trunk of her car. I jumped out of my truck and shouted, "Hey! Those are mine." She didn't even flinch, just smirked and said, "These don't belong to you. HOA says you're not allowed to get packages delivered here without approval." Approval? I almost laughed. Since when did a neighbor get to decide what comes to my house? I walked closer. And that's when she pulled out a piece of paper from her purse, some fake-looking notice with HOA violation written in bold letters. She slammed it against my chest and hissed, "One more package delivered here, and you're out. You don't even belong in this neighborhood." My fists clenched, but I didn't say a word. Instead, I stared at her car trunk where one of my boxes sat half open. She had actually ripped into it like it was her property. "Don't you dare touch me," she snapped, holding up her phone as if she was about to dial 911, "I'll call the cops right now and have you arrested for threatening me." I laughed under my breath. But it wasn't from humor. It was the kind of laugh you let out when you're holding back fire. She thought she was untouchable. She thought nobody would stand up to her. She had no idea what was inside the last box I'd left on the porch. She came back the very next morning, strolling across my lawn like she owned the place. This time, she didn't even wait for the delivery truck, she stood there, arms folded, tapping her foot until the driver dropped off a brown package. Before I could even step outside, she snatched it up and muttered, "HOA property, not his." My blood boiled, but I kept quiet, watching from the window. Because what she didn't know, that box wasn't just any package. Inside, nestled between old newspapers, was a cage. And in that cage, wide-eyed and furious, was the angriest skunk I'd ever trapped down by the creek. I had set it up perfectly, sealed the box just enough so air could flow. But the moment she jostled it, the animal let out a sharp scratch against the cardboard. She froze. Her eyes narrowed, then she tilted the box as if to peek inside. I stepped out onto the porch, leaning against the railing. Voice calm but edged with steel. "Careful with that one, Karen." She shot me a glare, rolling her eyes like I was bluffing. "Don't try to scare me. I know my rights." She yanked the box open, and the neighborhood fell silent for one split second. Then came the shriek. A sharp, piercing scream as the skunk shot out like a bullet, tail high, spraying everything in its path. Karen stumbled backward, clawing at her face, her perfect blouse drenched in the stench that made even the birds scatter from the trees. She screeched, "You'll pay for this. I'll have the police here in 5 minutes." She dropped her phone trying to dial, gagging as the smell clung to her hair and skin. I didn't move. I just folded my arms and said, loud enough for the neighbors who were peeking through blinds to hear, "Funny. You stole my property again. Pretty sure that's a crime, not a violation." And right then, I saw it, the curtains twitching, phones rising to record, neighbors whispering. The same people she'd bullied for years were finally catching her downfall live. By the time the cops pulled up, Karen was pacing in the middle of the street, hair wild, clothes ruined, her voice cracking as she pointed at me. "Arrest him. He set me up. He put some kind of animal in that box." Her hands waved frantically. But the smell coming off her was enough to make the officers recoil the moment they stepped out of their cruiser. One of the younger cops covered his nose. "Ma'am, what exactly are you accusing him of?" She jabbed her finger at me. "He's violating HOA rules. He's a danger. He can't even live here." Before she could finish, the older officer squinted at the HOA violation notice she had dropped earlier on the ground. He picked it up, turned it over, and let out a dry laugh. "This isn't official. This isn't even real paperwork. Where'd you get this?" Karen froze, eyes darting. I printed it." "But the HOA president." "That would be me," a voice called out. Everyone turned as Mr. Franklin, the actual HOA president, stepped out from his driveway. His arms were crossed, his face tight with anger. And I never gave you permission to harass him. In fact, we've had multiple complaints about you. The color drained from her face. She tried to step closer to the officers, but they raised a hand. Ma'am, you're trespassing. And if you keep filing false reports, that's a crime. I stood there quietly, letting the scene unfold. My daughter peeked out from the door behind me, whispering, "Daddy, is she in trouble?" I gave her a small nod without looking away from Karen. Karen's eyes burned into mine, but she didn't have the upper hand anymore. Not with the HOA president, the neighbors filming, and the cops looking less than amused. She opened her mouth to scream again. But right then, a neighbor's video went live on social media. Phones buzzed all around us. And the tide turned in an instant. Karen's shrieking turned into a desperate rant as she realized everyone was recording. "You're all going to regret this. He's dangerous. He set a wild animal on me." But the neighbors weren't siding with her anymore. They'd all had their run-ins. She'd fined kids for riding bikes on the sidewalk, threatened to tow cars that didn't belong to her, even yelled at an elderly veteran for flying his flag too high. Now, they saw their chance. Mrs. Lopez, from across the street, raised her phone higher and said, loud enough for the crowd, "You stole his packages. Karen. We've all seen you do it. Now the world gets to see." Karen froze, her face twitching as a chorus of voices rose from the cul-de-sac. "Yeah, I saw her take my lawnmower last month. She told me I couldn't have my sister visit. She even threatened my dog." Each accusation stacked up like bricks on her back. The cops tried to calm the crowd. But I could see it in their eyes, they weren't buying her story. And that's when I decided to end the argument once and for all. I pulled out my phone and tapped play. The screen lit up with crystal clear footage from my porch camera. Karen, in broad daylight, walking up, yanking the package, ripping it open, and laughing before she tossed the box into her trunk. The gasp that rolled through the neighbors was priceless. One of the officers looked straight at her and asked, "You want to explain this, ma'am?" Karen stuttered, stepping back, her voice breaking. That's fake. He edited it. He's framing me." I leaned against my truck and said calmly, "Funny. The same footage is already in the HOA's inbox. And, oh yeah, sent straight to the county sheriff's office." Her jaw dropped. The crowd murmured. The cops exchanged a look. She knew, in that moment, her fake power had cracked wide open. And she knew I wasn't just another neighbor she could push around. Karen's eyes darted from phone to phone, from the officers to the neighbors, searching for a single person who would defend her. But nobody moved. For the first time, the street she used to control with threats and fake rules stood against her. The older cop shook his head. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing, theft, and filing a false police report." He took her wrist, snapping the cuffs on while she sputtered and screamed, "You can't do this. I am the HOA." The crowd burst out laughing. The smell of skunk still hung heavy in the air, making her protests even more pathetic. Phones captured every second as she was led to the squad car. Her once perfect image ruined forever. My daughter tugged at my hand, smiling. "Daddy, is she going away?" I knelt beside her. "Yeah, sweetheart. She won't be bothering us anymore." The HOA president, Mr. Franklin, came over, his voice steady but almost proud. "You handled this better than most would have. We'll be having a meeting. And I think it's safe to say her time in this neighborhood is over." I nodded, keeping my eyes on the flashing lights as they carried her away. I didn't fight for this country, or work this hard for my home, just to be told I can't even get a package on my own porch. The neighbors cheered softly at that, clapping shoulders, shaking hands. For once, the street felt like a community again, not Karen's kingdom. And as the squad car disappeared around the corner, I couldn't help but smile. Justice had come, not through shouting, not through violence, But through patience, proof, and a little skunk with perfect timing, the smell would fade, but the memory would stick forever.